Hey everyone, Matt Pisarcik from RazorEmporium.com coming at you today for a quick how-to load the Rex Konsul and Rex Sentry Razors. The Razors have been on the market for many years. I think the Konsul came out in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, and the Sentry came out in 2023. And we still occasionally get asked about loading the blades and if there's something wrong or if it was designed incorrectly. So we'll kind of quickly chat about that and obviously show you how I load them, and hopefully it'll help you load them faster and easier. The whole impetus of the reason behind the Konsul and the Sentry were to kind of offer a different shaving experience from the Ambassador and the Envoy, kind of a unique twist on it, and the twist is obviously the slant. You know, people said that the Ambassador and the Envoy were a little blade forward, and maybe they felt like the blade was scrapey feeling, or they didn't like the slightly blade positive feel. So rather than having a second version, you know, like Ambassador A, Ambassador B with different exposures, I thought, let's just do something slightly different. And I really wanted to go after the efficiency. I think the Ambassador is fantastically efficient, but I will agree that it does have, you know, feel to it. I think the feel is great. I think after a while you love it, and it almost reminds me of a straight razor. But for those who like more of the kind of like sneaky laser feel where you can't really feel the blade and it's just like sneakily doing the work and you just kind of swipe and it's like just gone, that's the whole point of the Konsul or Sentry. Konsul being the adjustable, Sentry being the three-piece. So once we had this idea of a slanted razor, you know, the exposure, you know, concern could be addressed, but I wanted to make sure it was still going to perform great. Now, to get this, we had to, you know, obviously slant the guard on a downward angle, and I was slant also this blade tray where the blade sits. In terms of the cap and loading it, some people said it's hard. So here we go. 2 or 3 years later, we'll show you. I think I've showed on different videos, you know, but this will be a dedicated video. So the way I like to load both these razors is like any three-piece razor. I've said it a million times. I got my instruction from King Gillette. You know, literally the Gillette ads from 1904, 1905 show him holding a double ring or single ring razor in his palm, putting the cap down, sliding the blade over the top, and then putting the handle on top of it. And I always thought that was clever. You don't have to worry about trying to hold the handle at the same time. So again, here we go. We're gonna put the cap into the palm of our hand. We're gonna slide the double-edged blade down over it. It will sit nicely if you just kind of align it with the blade tabs and get it roughly there. And if you come down with this and go straight over and push, you heard that little click when it kind of finally pushed all the way through, and you will hear that little crunch. That's the sound of the blade folding. That's perfectly normal. And now that that blade is crunched down and it's actually bent, and I can verify that by looking at the side profile. And when I look at the side profile, I see that the edge of the top cap is pushing against the edge of the blade tray. Now I can engage the knob and clamp it all together, and it holds that pressure. And you're gonna see that it has a slanted blade gap. That is perfectly normal. That's the whole point of this razor. A slant razor imitates a guillotine, and it cuts on a slant. It slices through hair. It doesn't chop the hair like on a 90-degree angle like a regular safety bar razor will do. I've also heard concerns about the blade gap. If you take a feeler gauge and you run it along here, you will see a slight difference in gap. Please do not be concerned. This razor was heavily designed in CAD, and we took into consideration all these variables. And don't worry about how it looks. It may look a little weird, but it's going to cut fantastic. The Konsul has actually become one of our top-selling razors, and it's very unique because when it came out, it was the very first slanted adjustable ever on the market. Now, there was one from the 1950s that I've only seen a picture of. A few people actually have specimens. Okay, cool. But this is one that's widely available. It's CNC milled out of stainless steel, made in America, slanted adjustable. That's a first. You know, there's been a couple, I think there's 1 or 2 other people who've tried to kind of imitate. And of course, China loves to copy, but we are the innovators here at Rex and Razor Emporium, right? So there you go. So we loaded that guy up. Okay, so now we're gonna do the Sentry. I'm gonna do the exact same steps. I'm going to grab the cap, put it in the palm of my hand. I'm gonna grab the blade, put it roughly aligned in position, and put the guard on top of it. And with this, because it's a 3-piece, I can actually just kind of sandwich down. Again, you're gonna hear that little crunch. That's perfectly normal. That is the sound of the very thin piece of sheet metal steel conforming to the bend that has to happen in every double-edged blade, and the blade tabs, you know, going down through the blade and aligning. And again, we have a perfect alignment. I can tell because, again, the edge of my top cap is resting on the edge of the guard, that little profile of the guard that comes up. That's what you want to look for. If I was to misload it, I can actually just simulate that. I'm going to loosen it and move the cap a little bit to one side. I know that looks, to me, that's, I can't believe that someone could see that and think that's right, but you see that there's a huge gap between the cap here and the guard. There's a noticeable gap. They're not touching. If I just loosen it, I hear that little nice crunch. Again, that's the sound of it mating together. Snaps in perfectly. And yes, you get a slanted guard, slanted exposure, and that is the whole idea of this style razor. It's a slant razor. I didn't invent it. They've been made in Germany since the 30s. That's why we call these, by the way, Konsul and Sentry. These are German words to really emphasize their heritage. And even the knurl on these is a slanted knurl, and it's a diamond knurl, so it's actually 3-dimensional. And again, that is to really call out to your eye visually, hey, this is an angled razor. It's all about the angles. I will note real quick, I've heard people ask, Matt, you could solve all this if you just made these little blade tabs longer. Why can't you do that? If you look at this design, this piece that we call this the stem, the actual long thread, is its own piece. We screw this in and Loctite it to the actual cap. If we had to start with one giant piece of material, it'd be like starting off, I'm just gonna grab this puck of soap, with a big giant, you know, block of material and have to carve all of it out. We're actually able to carve out just the cap and then just the stem and then connect them together. And these are the exact same part. The cap for the Sentry is the same cap as for the Konsul. We just put a shorter stem or a longer stem. If we were to make this longer, it would actually increase the cost of the part because we now have to have a bigger piece and there's a lot more material to remove, which is more time. More time on a CNC is more money. The other kind of problem with that is that now, instead of this tab going through just the top of the blade tray, it now is going to intersect the guard. If it because right now it actually is already all the way down. It literally thousandths of an inch away from touching the bottom of the guard when you have the guard all the way up. We would actually have to make indentations in the guard. And if we made indentations in the guard, to me, it's a good place where rust can hang out. So then you have to go all the way through the guard. Now you have these long saber tooth, and I know there's another vendor in Russia that does that. It comes all the way through. To me, it's another thing to, now we're trying to align 3 different pieces of material. I think it's a problem for engineering. If he's pulled it off, fantastic. I'm not gonna, comment more on that. That's his design, that's cool, whatever. We do it this way. I think with just pushing that blade together and hearing that nice little snap and everything mating together, it's not so hard to load. But tell me what you think. Should we go back to the drawing board after multiple years of this being on the market, thousands of them sold, and change a small variable? We made them as long as possible. Have you loaded a Konsul? Have you loaded a Sentry? Do you have a problem with it? Tell me below in the comments. I want to hear from you. And that's all I got today for a quick how to load the Rex Konsul and Rex Sentry. I'm Matt from Razor Emporium, signing out.